All right, we're going to give it a second here. I'm not sure anybody's here just yet. There it goes. Anybody out there? Hello, hello. How's it going? Scott, Dean, good to see you. Everybody hear me okay? See me okay? I hope. Okay, Dan, thanks, buddy. Good to see you. Everybody say hey if you can. I hope everybody's doing well. Happy Sunday evening. I'm a bit of a week late. I was a little under the weather last week, so we just really didn't feel like live streaming. But back on, and I actually have some stories to tell and a question or two for you guys as well as the stream moves on. Of course, I want to give people a chance to come in and all that good stuff. So, what's been going on with you guys? Anything new? Anything exciting going on? Tell me stories. Anybody pick up any new firearms? Do any shooting over the last couple weeks? I picked up a few firearms. I'll be talking about that, by the way. Darren, good to see you. Looney Tune, what's going on? Bob Stedge, good to see you. Appreciate everybody chiming in. It's always nice. Spring cleaning, Dan O'Neill. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Scott picked up a Surefire X300 Ultra for $100 off from PSA. PSA does an incredible job. I know a lot of people give them trouble, and they're not cool. A lot of their products, in terms of competing with higher end products like them. I think Palmetto State Armory is fantastic. I really do. I'm a fan. I am definitely a fan. If nothing else, for some pretty deep discounts on things, but also I think a lot of their products are good. I've been running a couple of PSA AR-15s, 10.5-inch AR-15s, suppressed almost entirely, and they've been great. I haven't had a single issue. I maintain them as best I can, but they've been great. So I don't have a problem with them at all. I mean, I really think they do a great job. They allow people to get into things. I mean, the Dagger alone has been a huge seller for them. It's a good product. I've seen a lot come through Centerfire. So yeah, I'm definitely a big fan, no doubt about it. Pistol Pete, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Bob, let's see. SC here, same to you, sir. Yeah, appreciate it, man. Ohio, good to see you. Good to see you as always. Bob, starting my summer garden. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Scott, I've been eyeing a micro dagger with the comp slide like the SIG. Yes. Those look very cool. I have a story to tell about that here in just a little while. I'm glad you brought that up. So I'll save it for a few minutes. But yeah, those micro daggers are pretty sweet. They seem to always be out. I don't know if anybody's actually picked up one of the ones with the comp, like the 365 macro. Perhaps some people have. I don't know if it's one of those products soon to be coming or soon to be released, but they look pretty promising. They really do. But the daggers, I haven't had anybody come back into the shop and say that they've had problems with theirs. And again, we've transferred a lot of daggers over the last, let's say, year, maybe something like that. So I try and keep my ear to the ground when people have problems with things, especially if it becomes a trend. And the dagger has not been that way. So Darren picked up a PSA micro dagger frame and running a Glock 43 original on it. Okay, nice. Very, very cool. Very cool. Scott, PSA restocks on Thursdays. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Ohio. Oh, you have the comp micro. Okay, and so you've had good luck, I'm assuming. Let me know if you haven't. I'd be very curious about that. My assumption is you've had a good time with it. Again, I haven't heard anything negative in that regard. As you can tell, again, I'm getting over whatever cold or whatever I had, so kind of lingering a little bit. I apologize for that. Dan O'Neill, Honest Outlaw just did a review. If you can only have 5 handguns, I saw part of it. Yeah, I watched that earlier today. Neat video. I kind of knew what was coming, and I knew what number one would be because he is a 1911 guy, and that Wilson Combat is a beautiful firearm. So I was not surprised at all, and I liked his list quite a bit. I would have agreed, I think, probably with all of it. I mean, the shield, I don't know. You could kind of give or take whatever carry you have in that place. He just really likes the shield, but it was a great list. So I enjoy his videos immensely. I was a little bit bummed by his 365 AXG Legion video, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I'll just go ahead and dive into that. So I've picked up a couple of firearms since my last stream. In fact, I picked up 3. One of them was the P365 AXG Legion. And it's a good gun. I like it. I shot it today. It's not as much fun for me to shoot as some of the bigger, heavier guns. In fact, I took the 320 AXG Legion along with it just so I could have kind of big brother, little brother. That 320, it's one of the only 320s I like, but it's a wonderful shooter. I mean, it really is. It's heavy and kind of a beefy gun, very low recoil, so that's a lot of fun. The micro, I think, shoots above its weight class a little bit, which is a good thing. And it's reasonably accurate. In my hands, reasonably is probably pretty good. Other people would probably be better at it than me, but anyways, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I was kind of bummed when Honest didn't have as much luck with his, but his wife liked it quite a bit. So that's cool. But it is a beautiful gun, no doubt about it. And I do prefer it over the polymer frame 365s. I like the metal frames. I like metal firearms. The more and more I get older and my hands are kind of falling apart and everything. So I really enjoyed it quite a bit. So it would be fun at some point to try one of the Dagger micros with the comp as well, just to kind of compare the two, even though, metal frame to polymer frame, that's not very fair, but just to try it out. So Ohio, no problems. Love it. So that's great. That's fantastic. I like it. Very good. Dan O'Neill, I like 22 LR. Cool one made it. Okay. Fair enough. Bob, I'm in for opinion, a thin carry. I'm a thin guy. So you're asking for an opinion on a thin firearm to carry? It sounds to me like. I mean, a lot of those micro 9s are pretty good and they're reasonably thin, whether it's the Shield 43X, 365, Hellcat, any of those firearms would probably do fine. What is it? The Mete, the MC9, I think it is, the Canic. All those are good guns. So I would take a look at any of those. Ohio said Mossberg, MC2SC is skinny. So is a Masada Slim. 2 other great firearms as well, for sure. So yeah, I would kind of play around with those if you can. If you have a rental range or something somewhere, I would just go check those out. Ohio, I think Honest big paws kept him from liking it. Well, what's weird is he liked the polymer version. So I don't know. You're probably right. He has huge hands, and that can make a big difference. But yeah, I was kind of surprised about that. So I don't know. Pistol Pete, do you have a SIG 226? Several. I've got an MK25, and then I've got the 226 X5 and the 226 X5 Legion. The X5 Legion is a shooter. I've shot it a fair amount. I like it quite a bit. The other X5 is kind of a collection gun, so I've not shot it. And then the regular 226, I've shot 226s many times. But yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a SIG collector to a degree. So any of the P series, the metal frame P series guns, I'm in on those. I like them quite a bit. So yes, I do have a 226 or 2 or 3. And I recommend them to almost anyone. You kind of can't go wrong with a 226 or a 229. I like both of those. I probably like the 229 a little bit better. I just, the center of gravity is a little back further in the firearm. It's almost imperceptible or imperceivable, I guess I should say. But I do like the way the 229 sits in my hand. But both are extremely capable firearms for sure. Pete, do you not have a 226? I actually thought maybe you would. Bob, okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Irish, you're doing a great job. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Good encouragement. Scott, still fighting with Beretta to get my $100 rebate on the Beretta APX A1 Tactical, which I bought in like August or September. Oof. Beretta is not known for moving quickly on things. Same thing on the kind of dealer sales side as well. So yeah, I'm sorry you're going through that, but I totally get it. That's frustrating. I hope you get it soon, though. I really do. And I hope you're enjoying the gun, if nothing else. Bob, yeah, I'm leaning on a Shield model. Honest loves him. Oh, so the Shield, when I'm describing that at center fire, if I'm on the sales side, the Shield is still kind of a micro 9, but sort of stepping out of that a little bit. It's probably the heaviest of the micro 9s, or one of the heaviest. To me, that means it's more enjoyable to shoot for a lot of people. A lot of people can still get their hands around it because it's still a pretty thin grip. But perhaps it's not as light to carry if you're doing shorts and a t-shirt. Of course, you can do it. I mean, it's still a light gun, but it's on the heavier end of the micro 9. So, kind of weigh that as part of the decision making. And of course, get your hands on one, shoot one if you can, all of that, because everybody's opinion is different. But that's how I've typically described it. And so sometimes people will gravitate towards that because, again, it's a very shootable firearm, very pleasant. In fact, the Shield 45 is a very pleasant firearm, considering how small it is, and 45s tend to have a pretty good push to them. But yeah, if when you compare the Shield Plus, I would say, versus the 365, the original one, the smallest one, there is a considerable difference in size and weight. And that can translate to enjoyment on the range for the heavier, larger firearm, but much more concealable for the smaller and lighter firearm. So, I mean, again, just kind of weigh your options there. But test them if you can. Ohio, my wife stole my Shield Plus. Yeah, it's a good gun. She's got a good gun with her, if nothing else. Pete, I like the P226. I have the SSE 9mm with the short extractor. Okay, fair enough. Nice. Yeah. That's one of those guns. It's a classic firearm that's got a lot of pedigree, a lot of heritage to it. So I think, if people are trying to build a collection of some of the staples of firearms throughout, let's say, the last 100 years or so, maybe 115 years, a 1911 would be one, a P226 would be another, a CZ75 of some sort or another, I think, would be part of that, Beretta 92 of some sort. Pick your flavor with any of those, just to kind of get those categories in. I think those are some of the substantial and historical firearms. And there are others as well, but those are some that kind of pop out of my mind right away. So again, for those who are really trying, and we had somebody on, I can't remember who it was the last time we did a stream, and he was saying that he was really trying to find firearms that were, just really historically relevant. They had a significant pedigree to them, whatever the case may be. 226 is absolutely one of them. I don't know anyone who could argue that. It really does have quite a pedigree to it. Dan, 239 Tac Pack 9mm. Any idea how rare they are? 4.1 threaded barrel. Well, I don't know. I mean, I have a 239. I love it. It is not a tac pack. It does not have a threaded barrel. I've seen threaded barrel 229s come along on Gunbroker from time to time. I don't know how rare they are. I don't know that they're that rare, perhaps, since they pop up on Gunbroker with some frequency. I don't know, but that's where I would start if you're looking for one. 239 is a fantastic firearm, Dan, just so you know. The SIG P series, any of the metal frame guns, whether it's steel or when it comes to grips, how do you differentiate, observe between a thin and long grip versus a wide and short grip for feel? That's a tough question. I mean, a lot of it just comes down to simple physics. When you get something in your hand, you kind of know based upon how much grip you get around it, how big the grip is, how many fingers you get on it, how long the grip is, all of that. And some are probably going to be more comfortable in the hand than others, and feel more natural, which oftentimes, but not always, but oftentimes translates into better shooting on the range. I don't know how else to answer that. I hope I answered that okay for you. Let's see, Bob. Okay, you backed the 365X on the Big Johnson chat. I watched every episode. Wow, cool, man. They're what I'm looking for as well. So I carry a 365, the smallest one. And mainly because I want it to be all the time, whether I'm in jeans and a hoodie or I'm in shorts and a t-shirt, I don't care. I want the same gun all the time. I used to have kind of a rotation and I've stopped doing that. So I just have the 365. I barely notice it's on, which I like quite a bit. And now it's the smallest, so it's going to be probably the most challenging to shoot. And that's kind of a sacrifice, I guess, I'm making. So I do sometimes nudge towards the 365. However, if somebody says this doesn't feel right in the hand, something else does, we immediately, scratch that, move on to the next thing. That's perfectly fine because to me, guns, especially carry guns, are very personal. And what works for me is not going to work for the next person necessarily. But presenting the options and just talking about the pros and cons and everything, letting people make their decision. I mean, that's, all you can do. So, but I do like the 365. I really do. And the 365, the macro, the AXG Legion, it's a wonderful gun. It really is. Again, it shoots above its weight class. It feels like a bigger gun than it really is, which I enjoyed about it. But I certainly could feel it significantly more today at the range than I could the 320 AXG Legion, which makes perfect sense, right? Again, it's all about physics. That 320 is effortless to shoot. I mean, it really is. If you haven't shot one, I'm not a huge fan of 320s, but that one is spectacular. It really is. It's a fantastic firearm. So Keith Gregory, oh my gosh, it's been a while, brother. How are you? I hope you are well, sir. Thanks for popping in. I really appreciate it, man. Scott, I have two 239s. Nice. Was able to pick up a threaded barrel for it for $50. That was a factory threaded barrel. If you ever come across any more of those or anything or see one, let me know. I'd be curious about that. It'd be fun to try suppressing one. I think that'd be fun. I like to suppress whatever I can when I can. It makes it easier to shoot for a bad hand guy. So anyway, but yeah, 239s are great. 225s are also fantastic. It's a single stack. It's like a mini 229. And I absolutely love them. Pistol Pete, CZ75 competes with the 1911 for my favorite pistol design. Yeah, I would agree with that. The 75 is a classic design, as is the 1911. 1911, of course, has a lot more history to it, but the 75 is no slouch either. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the any of the CZ75s, any of them. David, good to see you. KS feels like it's been a while since I saw you on here. We're here, man. Every 2 or 3 weeks, kind of doing our thing. So the other one that I wanted to talk to you guys about, then I have a question for you. I also picked up the Daniel Defense H9. And I mean, you guys know I've been very excited about this. I've talked about it on multiple streams. And I will say I love it. It's fantastic, but I knew going in that it was going to potentially have some challenges. It's pretty tight in terms of tolerances. And a lot of people have had feeding issues with them, at least in the first few 100 rounds. And I 100% did. And I'll tell you what, it was incredibly consistent. It was the first round off the magazine every time. And it didn't matter whether I loaded 1 round, 10 rounds, 15 rounds in the magazine. It really didn't matter. Now, 15 was pretty much a sure thing. But even 1 round, oftentimes, that extractor is unbelievably tight. Might even be a little bit oversprung. I don't know. I've talked to Daniel Defense, and they were very quick to say, yeah, absolutely. Send it in. We'll take a look at it. We'll get it fixed up for you. I have not done that yet. I put, I think it was 100 rounds through the first time, and I was a little bit frustrated after that round because, again, it was that first round every time. The rest of the rounds would run through the gun without an issue, and it's a very accurate firearm. It's a lot of fun to shoot. So I took it home after 100 rounds, cleaned it. It was stripping a lot of copper, a lot of brass. There were a lot of those little brass specks in the firearm, more so than most other firearms I shoot. Whatever, not a big deal. So I cleaned it very thoroughly, took it back to the range, did another 100 rounds, pretty much the same issue. And that's when I called Daniel Defense, because I was kind of like, 200 rounds, I feel like it should be pretty well broken in. And the manual even says about 200 rounds. Well, I put another 150 after cleaning it again, and that was almost a flawless run. I think maybe 2 times where it didn't load off the first round of the magazine, but then everything else ran fine. So I think it's broken in. I'm going to take it to the range again, probably on this week, next week, whenever it is, run it again. And if that doesn't work, I'll call Daniel Defense back and send it back to the mothership. But I will say, I mean, it runs through magazines just fine once you get that first round in, and it's a fantastic shooter. I actually like the trigger. It's very weird. So I think I've had 6 or 7 people shoot it at center fire. A couple of people said that is not for me. I do not like it at all. And others said I could get used to this. And that's kind of how it is. It's an upside down trigger. So in other words, the lighter portion of it is at the top. Very different than what most of us are used to in shooting handguns. But anyway, it's a good gun. I think it's worth it. Is it ready for prime time? No, I do not think so. I think they need to go through a generation or two, an iteration of it or two. And once they get a few things worked out, sure, I think it probably could be ready for prime time. Several people have asked if I'm going to carry it. Absolutely not. It's not dependable at this time. It's a fun range plinker, that sort of thing. I think it's a capable firearm for that use, but that's it. But anyways, I wanted to report on that. I'm always going to tell you guys if I run into issues on something. And it's kind of been frustrating. I did spend a fair amount of time sitting in the living room on the floor with dummy rounds and just running rounds through it to try and keep helping it break in. So anyways, again, 350 rounds through it and seems to be doing fine at this time. So I'll report back if anything else happens. But I've been pretty excited about that. And it hasn't disappointed. It's challenged, but it hasn't disappointed yet. So pretty cool there. Excuse me. Mika, good to see you. Late is okay. Totally acceptable. Michael Edwards, good to see you as well. I dig the Division Bell print on the wall. These are LPs. I collect LPs. I have them all over the house. They're in walls in multiple rooms, including the living room. My 10 favorite albums or 9 or 10 favorite albums in the living room. And these are others that I care for quite a bit. So yes, Pink Floyd Division Bell is up there. Good eye on that. Let's see, Bob, I want to be the gray guy too. Do you mean like just kind of blending in, not sticking out? If that's the case, that's good policy. Yeah, anytime you stick out and get attention, that can be challenging. In fact, a little bit off topic from firearms, but on YouTube, I watch a lot of YouTube, obviously, and I watch a lot of dash cam lessons and other like dash cam sorts of things where they show road rage and accidents and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of horrifying to see what people do to each other. But it also sort of reinforces that idea of gray guy or gray man, right? Not attracting attention, even though we all want to, honking and flashing lights and showing various fingers, you know which ones I'm talking about. And just instead letting the crazies move on. And it's not worth kind of getting into. In my younger days, I would have been the very first one to honk and flash lights and show certain fingers and do all that. This day and age, I don't do it anymore. I'm really trying to restrain myself. Again, just with that mantra of gray man or gray guy, just kind of blending in and not sticking out. You can be very forgettable, and that actually, to me, is a very good thing. So, Bob, if that's what you're referring to, I totally agree with that. Scott, I rented an original Hudson, and every time I pulled the trigger would pinch my fingers. Were you going for the bottom of the trigger or the top of the trigger? I'd be curious. I haven't had that issue. In fact, I've got it sitting in front of me. I haven't had that issue at all. But again, I'm sitting on the upper half of the trigger, but not all the way up to the top of the trigger guard. And that seems to work pretty well for me. And I've got large hands, but not extra large hands. I don't know if that matters either. Pistol Pete, Division Bell is a good one. I really like Animals. Wish You Were Here is probably my favorite of their albums, but I like Division Bell quite a bit because I was a big fan of the Pulse live album, and Division Bell was heavily showcased on that. So Animals is pretty good too, though. Let's see, Scott, Us and Them, this symphonic album is in the top 3 Pink Floyd albums. Yeah, they had some good stuff. They absolutely did, no doubt about it. Fluffy. Okay, Fluffy. What made you the most proud, happy so far this weekend? Is this a gun-related question, Fluffy? Just curious. I mean, I got to shoot today. That was fun. That I always enjoy that with a very good friend of mine. And We have a good time together. So that was fun to shoot. And some of the other people got to come up and shoot a few of the firearms, and they enjoyed it as well. And I love sharing firearms with people, letting them shoot them. Just so people can, have a little bit of an experience. And I like their opinion. I like to hear what they have to say about it. I always did that when I was doing reviews, to try and just kind of gather other people's thoughts and just kind of first instincts when they're pulling that trigger for the first time, just to see what's going on. So let's see. Ohio. I've grown very fond of Obscured by Clouds. Very underrated. Okay, nice. We should do a music night at some point, because oh man, we would tear it up for sure. Although some people would probably get kind of bored. All right. Pistol Pete, I'm a big fan of Obscured by Clouds. Okay. we're on the subject of Pink Floyd now. It's good stuff. Dark Side of the Moon. Anyone? Let's see. Fluffy. Nope. Just General Life Happy Feels. Okay. Moderators, keep an eye on that one if you don't mind. Pistol Pete, Joe Satriani and Steve Vai are touring right now. Oof, that would be fantastic. Steve Vai, Passion and Warfare, another one of my favorite albums. It is not on the wall anywhere, but it was a very influential album in my younger years as a drummer, believe it or not. So it's good stuff. Happiness is a warm gun. Yes. I'll tell you that 365, we got it pretty hot today. We were shooting it pretty fast. And it handled it reasonably well. Scott, I had one ticket to see Roger Waters play Fenway Park, probably one of the shows I've seen him do. And I've seen him a bunch of times. Okay, that's very cool. Very cool. So do you like Roger Waters better than like the Pink Floyd that is or was the later years? I'd be curious about that. All right. So I do have a question for you guys, and it goes along with the Daniel Defense H9, believe it or not. It just kind of inspired me for that, because as I was going through that process and thinking about the break-in period and being okay with that, or reminding myself that it's okay. Do you guys have a problem with break-in periods on firearms? I don't care what kind of firearm it is, but let's stick with handguns for the time being, because when we get into rifles, break-in periods can be very differently defined, especially if it's a bullseye rifle or whatever weird processes you go through for that. So handguns. Do you have a problem with a break-in period on a handgun? If you do, tell me why. Tell us why. If you don't, tell us why. I'd be really curious about that. I've been contemplating that a lot and having that discussion with people locally. And I've got a pretty broad base of opinions on that. Some I agree with probably more than others. And I'll present the rest here in a minute. But yeah, that's my question. Fluffy, thank you for keeping it on target. I really appreciate that. Bob, I was watching Phil Collins videos last night. Phil, I was a singing drummer too, man. Phil was my idol. He was definitely my idol. I dig me the Phil Collins. Let's see. Ohio, I'm good with break-ins if it was expected. I've had people say that if it needs to be broken in, they would never trust it. I think that's foolish. Good thought. I appreciate that. I want to circle back to that in just a moment. So I appreciate that, Ohio. Everyone else jump in on this as well. I'd be really curious. Fluffy, I'm fine with break-in periods. Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that as well. Is that on any handgun regardless? I'd be curious about that. Looney Tune, absolutely have an issue with the break-in after, after 100 rounds? Okay, just regular 100 rounds, unless it's a hand-fit pistol like a Wilson Infinity Cabot. Okay, so you've kind of set a pretty defined line for break-in. Is that in any handgun, like any brand or anything like that? I'd be curious about that. But that's good. I mean, you've got a defined wall or kind of line in the sand, if you will, for that. Interesting. Okay. Pistol Pete, I don't have a problem with break-ins depending on what it is. Some of the best guns I've ever owned have had a few hiccups when I started running them. Glad I didn't give up on them. Okay, nice. Very good. Very good. Steve B, it's not broken in until 500 rounds. At least I'm not going to carry it until then. Fair enough. Okay, good thought. Good thought. Pete, a striker-fired polymer gun won't get much slack of a break-in for me. Interesting that you say that again. I want to circle back to that in a moment. Scott, It's because everybody using computerized CNC machines and not knocking off the sharp edges. They're just letting the customer do it for them. AK, it takes it takes five around to break in a Kemper 45, five and round, or like 500 rounds maybe, or something like that. But yeah, I've heard that as well, Scott. Fluffy, any handgun, regardless, I expect 200 rounds as a break-in, regardless of manufacturer. Interesting. Okay. 1,000 rounds per carry. Okay. Ohio, I expect plastic guns to run out of the box. Classic or fitted guns, no problem. Beretta and CZ cycle guns before they ship. Others don't. Interesting. Okay. How much do they cycle the guns before they ship? Like every single gun? And what does that look like? I mean, are they just running the slide? Are they shooting a bunch through them? What are they doing? I'd be curious about that as well. Scott says 500 rounds. Okay. Interesting. So I want to go back. Ohio, you said I'm good with break-ins if it's expected. I've had people say if it needs to be broken in, they would never trust it. I think that's foolish. I agree with you there. So in thinking about this, firearms are machines like anything else. I just got a new vehicle not too long ago, and I'm in the middle of a break-in period for that. And it's a long break-in period, like 3,000 or 4,000 miles break-in period, because it's a hybrid. Yeah, you can laugh at me if you want. I drive a lot, so I need it. But anyway, so I was just kind of thinking about that. Why are we treating a firearm differently than we are maybe an automobile or something like that, where the automobile we're going to give a little bit more of a grace to, right? We're not going to be flooring it all the time and running it past, 80, 85 miles an hour on the highway for the first period of time, whatever it is. To me, I kind of feel the same way about firearms. Now, I feel like, and who said it? Pete, you said it. Striker fired polymer gun won't get much slack of a break-in. I think we've kind of gotten to that place, right? That's a pretty common mantra that I hear. And I hear a lot of YouTubers say that as well. I'm not saying it's wrong by any stretch. And I have oftentimes thought that too. I've sort of had you should be able to pull a Glock out of a box and it should run. Generally, they do. But what if it does need to have a little bit of a break-in, right? Maybe things weren't made exactly quite right, so the parts need to marry or something like that. It's interesting to see where people draw the line on that. Like with this Daniel defense, I kind of knew what I was getting into. So although I was frustrated, I wasn't mad and ready to throw it out the door. I knew I'd have to kind of go through that process. And at the end of the process, be able to enjoy it more and be more reliable and that sort of thing. It's still not 100%, but it's a lot better. But I ran the 365 to the 365, not a single issue. I think we put 100 rounds through it. So not a high round count by any stretch, but it didn't complain at all. Not a big deal. Now it's also an alloy frame. The tolerances are a little tighter on that, kind of like the Daniel defense versus I've also got a Steyr C9A2 here. It's a polymer firearm, very similar to, Glocks and Smiths and whatever else. I guess people would say that should just run right out of the box. I don't know. And I don't know that there's a right answer or a wrong answer to this necessarily, but I think it's an interesting conversation and an interesting approach to take when dealing with a new firearm. Because if you get a polymer firearm out of the box and it doesn't work 100%, maybe has a couple bobbles, failure to feed, failure to eject, stovepipe, whatever it is. When do you put it down and say, nope, I'm getting rid of it, or I'm sending it back to the mothership? What's the line to be drawn there? And if you do send it off to the mothership, they send it back and they say, we fixed A, B, and C, or we checked it out, it looks fine to us, or whatever. Do you ever trust it again? I mean, that is the next question there, I think. So I think I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing to be thinking about when we get into firearms, right? And especially for someone, we all know someone who doesn't have a lot of experience and are kind of getting into firearms. They bought their first one, or they're looking for one, or whatever it is. How do we help educate a little bit, right? And then also make sure that the failures aren't the person. Oftentimes, if I'm on the range and I see somebody have an issue with a firearm, or they come in from the range to where I am in centerfire, hey, this gun sucks. It's not working right. It's broken or whatever. Sometimes, sure, yeah, it's a mechanical device. They can fail. Other times, oftentimes, it's the user. Maybe they're not gripping it correctly, right? There's too much recoil for them. They're just not holding it right, holding it too low on the grip, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes it's user error as well. I don't know. I think break-in period is a very interesting thing. But so some of you guys are saying if you expect it, if it's that kind of firearm or finely tuned or finely fitted firearm, not a problem. If it's a polymer wonder, probably not. I don't know. I think that's very interesting. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. I don't really have a conclusion for this segment so much, but I think it's really interesting. Take that question away with you and kind of ponder that over the next couple of weeks when you're shooting firearms or shopping for firearms or whatever, and just kind of think about that a little bit. I think it's kind of interesting to think about that. Pete, let's see. CZ has a machine that they put their pistols on and it cycles the action and dry fires a lot. Now, have you ever heard the thing about CZ should not be dry fired entirely too much because there's a roll pin in the slide that actually gets chewed up when you dry fire it? Is that true? I've heard that a lot, and I've seen that a couple of times, actually, in the flesh. So I actually am of the mindset not to dry fire my CZs very much. I mean, I don't think any of them have been dry fired over maybe a couple of dozen times. And it's over paranoia a little bit, only because I've seen those roll pins get chewed up. So I'd be curious to know if you've heard that. Or if it's a wives' tale, because it could be. Scott, I've seen video CZ uses a machine to rack the slide a bunch. I don't know how many times, but it's a lot. That's incredible. Every one of them. That's because they're pumping out a lot of fun. Maybe that's why they don't put out quite so many firearms, because they're putting them all in this machine and racking the guns so many times. Interesting. Darren, good to see you. Let's see. It depends on the tolerances. Glocks, perhaps. M&P should run right out of the box. Hand fit 1911s, 2011 Shadow 2 are a lot tighter. So I would think they need a break-in period. Okay. I mean, we're starting to see a pattern here a little bit. I think that's acceptable. I do. Pistol Pete. Arex does it for their metal guns as well. Really? That's a brand we don't hear of very much anymore. Arex. When's the last time you saw a video on an Arex firearm? Are they doing very much these days? Because I haven't really thought about them. I know, sorry guys. I know they did the Delta, the kind of second generation Deltas. Some of those of you who saw my original video on the original Delta, oof, I did not like that gun very much. I was not impressed. But people have said the second gen was actually pretty good, and their other guns are really solid. So yeah, I'd be curious to know whatever happened to those guys. Pete, could be why some of the new CZs have firing pin related pin break early. There you go. Yeah. Looney Tune, yes, any pistol. They are all production guns. We are not the majority of gun owners. Majority of gun owners aren't putting a 500 round break-in period, maybe 2K rounds to the pistol the whole life. True story. That is very, very true. Very true. Ohio, I have swap slides on with Beretta, high power clones, and CZ. I had to break in the slides to frames before it would cycle reliably in all cases. Interesting. Okay, fair enough. Ohio, full-length metal rails have a lot more interference than short-railed plastic guns. Why? Tell me more about that, Ohio. Please, I'd be curious about that. Draw me a picture of that to help me understand my feeble mind. But I'm curious about that, especially because you're saying on plastic, full-length metal rails have a lot more interference than short-railed plastic guns. So, like my DWX, that's a full-railed metal firearm, right? Am I defining that correctly? I'm assuming I am. Versus like this Steyr C982, it's got rails on it, but it's a polymer gun, and there are only a few. I mean, there are a couple of teeth on it, if you will. Is that what you're referring to? Steve, I keep track of the round count of all my guns. That's only the ones I bought new. The Shadow 2 Compact is at 1,500 in 4 weeks. That's incredible. That's fantastic. But hopefully you're still liking it. I like mine quite a bit. Admittedly, I have not been back to the range with it for a while. I've been kind of playing around with different things, but it performed flawlessly when I needed it to. Scott, I can confirm that that roll pin will fail, and that's the rope pin that hold your firing pin in the gun. Okay, that's why CZ Custom makes a solid roll pin upgrade. Fair enough. So maybe I'm not going crazy there. Yeah, because again, I've seen, well, we didn't have a gunsmith anymore, but when we did, I saw our gunsmith pull one of those pins out of a CZ75, and it looked like an animal had been chewing away at it. I mean, it was kind of weird looking. I'd never seen anything like that. Ohio, with the CZs, I put an earplug in the hammered channel, but I swap out the pins pretty early for better ones. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Scott, roll pen, damn speech to text. It's all good. A-Dubs. What's up, man? I love that avatar, by the way. That's a great avatar. Let's see. The Rost Martin is a Rex Delta. The Rost Martin. I'm going to have to look that up later. You've got me curious about that. Interesting. I've never heard of the Rost Martin before. Ohio, let's see. Look on the metal guns. The rails are full length on the slide. Any geometry off makes it interfere more. Polymer guns have short rail sections that work more freely, even if they are off a little bit. I mean, I guess, yeah, because polymer flexes, right? So it's probably, I think I see what you're saying now. So yeah, I guess the tolerances can be off on a polymer a little bit more, right? There's more forgiveness on that. Okay, I think I'm following you on that. The generalization, but it works in most cases. 1911s are full rail. Okay, interesting. This is a fascinating conversation, by the way. Mateo, wow, I'm late. Didn't get the notification till late. It's all good, brother. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. Jacob, hey, KS, what do you think about the Colt Custom Shop 1911 M45A1? Do you think it justifies the 2200 MSRP? I mean, if you're a huge Colt fan, sure, probably. For me, probably not. I mean, I've got one Colt. It's a 9mm competition, 1911, and I love that gun. It's a great gun. It's got a little bit of trigger work on it, but it's a great gun. But to $2,200, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So again, if you're a diehard Colt fan, that's a thing for you, sure. But if you like a lot of other firearms, $2,200 goes a long way for a lot of firearms. So I don't know. That's kind of up to you to decide, but that's kind of how I would look at it. Range Randy, how you doing, brother? Good to see KS. Just saw you're on the air. I am indeed, my friend. I am. It is great to see you. Let's see, Fluffy. Do guns with expected break-in periods end up having a longer life because you have better marriage between the mated parts? Good question. I don't know the answer to that. That's something that somebody would have to answer that's done more of a long-term case study. So I don't know. Maybe. I mean, you know, when the parts marry together, right? When all of the metal parts, the way they're designed, and each gun is going to be, it's going to have some slight differences to it. But when those parts made up properly, I mean, yeah, it probably will add to the life of the firearm if you're breaking it in properly. But I don't know if it would have a longer life than something that doesn't have that kind of break-in, if that's how you're asking it. I don't know. Mateo, if it's a revolver, I'm a Colt whore. Nice. We all know you are. Ohio, most of us will never fire one enough to know. Yeah, I think that's the answer. I think you're right. There may be some long-term studies on that. I think that's where Google would come in handy, probably. Because again, I don't know the answer to that. Dan O'Neill, 25-cent tune-up. I've done that many a time on many a Glock. It actually can make a little bit of a difference, but probably not as much as I think some people have touted that over the years. Your mileage may vary on that because what I do might be a little bit different and might not be the right thing to do. But I feel like I'm hitting the right parts. I don't know. Pistol Pete, JB Bohr paste will do that. Okay. All right. I'm not familiar with JB Bohr paste. Darren, kind of off topic, KS or anyone in the chat, any thoughts on the TSOS 1911s? I have never shot one, Darren, but I have transferred a lot of them. They are very budget friendly, but I'll tell you what, I have not been turned off by any of them. They're reasonably good looking firearms. Their triggers are not bad. The fitment seems pretty solid. I don't know. And I haven't had anybody come back and say that they regretted buying one. Again, we've transferred a lot, especially the GI model, the kind of, I want to say like $400, $500 model. They're almost kind of green looking. It's sort of a gray green, almost the Legion gray, but a little bit more green in it. But yeah, I haven't had anybody come back and complain about them. So might be worth trying out, especially at that price point, if you want to just give it a whirl. But yeah, I don't have a problem with them. I really don't. Probably wouldn't be the first on my list. I mean, I'd be aiming for more kind of the Dan Wesson sort of thing, but and that's on the opposite end of the spectrum a little bit. But if I'm thinking in terms of, I guess, longevity, we still go back to the whole break-in conversation and parts marrying, because T-Sauce, I don't know how well they break in. I just don't know. But like I said, I haven't had any negative feedback yet. So if you hear anything, let us know. And if anybody has any experience on T-Sauce 1911s, holler, please. Let's see, Dan, anything? Okay. Let's see. Ohio, Darren, I have 2 great guns. Okay, well, there you go. Fantastic. Ohio, are they both 45s? Be curious about that. Let's see, Mateo, I use bore paste on my lever actions to get the actions mated up better. Nice, nice. And Mateo, T-Sauce 1911s are pretty good. Gearsons aren't bad either. Yeah, I mean, so I've got a T-Sauce and a Gearson, both Beretta clones. Good guns. I've enjoyed them. If you want to shoot a Beretta 80s style kind of 380 firearms and you don't want to get the real thing, or you don't want to shoot those, I've got Beretta 86, but then I've got it's the Gearson MC14T, I think it is. I'd rather shoot that Gearson all day long, simply because I really don't want to shoot the Beretta 86 very much. I think replacing parts on that would be miserable. And it was an expensive firearm, so I would rather just look at it in the safe and go, oh, you're nice, and then put it away and then shoot the Gearson, which is probably a terrible approach to it, but that's kind of how my mind works. So I've had good luck with the companies. I just don't have any experience with the 1911s. Bob, what is your opinion of the new Ruger 380? I know what 1776 thinks for carry. Ruger 380. Is it the Max? The Ruger Max? Is that the one you're talking about? Let me know. I mean, I've never shot one. I've handled them a couple of times. I mean, you know, Ruger's pretty consistent. You kind of know what you're getting out of the box with the Ruger. They tend to work pretty well. They're not necessarily the nicest feeling guns in the hand, but they work. So if you want a reasonably affordable 380 that's capable of doing what it needs to do, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Another one might be the 365 380. That's actually pretty good as well. So just food for thought. I think the Ruger has more capacity, if I'm not mistaken, but both are good guns. Steve B, I don't think the Army has ever used a break-in. I have that 106-year-old M1911 and it works great. Yeah. Of course, that's had a lot of time to break in, but yeah, they probably don't. I think you're probably right on that. Ohio, the T-Sauce would make a great base for a build, hard forged steel frames and slide. Nice. Yeah, that's a good thought. I hadn't thought about that. So there you go. There's a good use case for them. You get all the parts and then you can swap them out as you need it. Ohio, yes, a 5-inch and a Commander. Nice. Okay, nice. All right, I got to get caught up here for a second. Range Randy, when it comes to revolvers, I'm a Smith & Wesson fan. However, I just got the new model Colt Python, and the fit and finish is very good, and it shoots great. Congratulations, Randy. Nice. Nice. Yeah, I'd say those two would be the first that would come to my mind for revolvers, probably. Smith, maybe a hair more, just because I think I hear about them more in popular media from a revolver perspective, but yeah, both for sure. Looney Tune, have you heard anything on the production of the full-size M&P 2.0 45 ported PC? Let's see. I finally found a used one, working on a deal, but they are impossible to find. The 10mm version is plentiful. I have not. No, I have not. I'll keep my ear to the ground. If I hear anything, I'll let you know. But I have not heard anything on them. Scott, I believe the TSOS 1911s have a lot of MIM parts. I picked up a Taylor's company. I think you talked about this the last time too. 1911 from PSA like 2 years ago for $350. It's just a rebranded Rock Island. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, believe it or not, I mean, there are a lot of good budget-minded 1911s out there. There are some that I would probably stay away from, like Taurus and some of those. But yeah, these other brands, I think you're fine with them. Bob, I was waiting for the Gearson 2011. I bought their 1911. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've heard a little bit about the 2011. It's I think we still have one in the cabinet. The trigger, it. I would rather have a Prodigy personally. That's just my opinion on it. But if you've got a certain budget and maybe you want to tinker with it a little bit, you could probably do that Gearson. It would probably be fine. Let's see. Pistol Pete, I'm a big fan of the M&P 2.0 and 45. I will use one for carry as well. Nice. Dan O'Neill, 10 millimeter Kimber was the only one that needed a tune up, and now it's tight and right. Very good. It's a big 10 millimeter. Yeah, it's a little kicker there. Ohio, Scott, TSOS uses no MIM parts. So that Taylor is an arms core make. Huh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, I remember when I was working with Arms Corps and Rock Island to do a couple of videos on some of their 1911s. Arms Corps sent the ammo, which was very nice of them. The only time I ever got ammo for the channel, but that was very nice of them to do. But yeah, they had a catalog, and Taylor was in there as well. So I never took them up on it, but yeah, they were in there. Fluffy, how much does maintenance parts availability come into your decision making when choosing a gun that shoots well or feels good in the hand? Maintenance parts, like parts availability if something breaks. I mean, I think about that for sure. So a good example of that, the Hudson. I mean, I knew going into that gun when I bought it, when it first got released in 2017, that was a dangerous road to go down, because brand new company, small company, brand new firearm, brand new product just out of the blue. And what was the support going to be like? And sure enough, to my knowledge, do not quote me on this. This is third hand. I will preface this now. But I think there were people that had sent in for repair during the whole bankruptcy thing. And it took a very long time to get them back, or some may not have ever gotten their firearms back. Again, don't quote me on that because I don't know for sure. That's something I heard multiple times. But yeah, that it is a consideration for sure. For sure. I mean, Fluffy, that's why I was saying that Beretta 86 I have, I don't shoot it because replacing the parts on it, it's possible to do, but it would be very difficult and it would be kind of a long road. And I'd probably have to do it myself. And that firearm, I'm not so sure I'd want to do. It's a little bit finicky. It's the tilt action Beretta 86. And it's got a pin in the very front that's kind of wonky. So, yeah, I don't think I want to be in that position. So, Mateo, speaking of 380, the Glock 25 is pretty nice. Yeah, duh. Of course it is. It's fantastic. Been shooting the snot out of mine. Yeah, it's a hoot, man. It really is a hoot. In fact, my very close friend and I, she and I were at the range today. She's got the Glock 28 and shooting that quite a bit. Had a lot of fun with that. But that Glock 25 is just awesome. I absolutely love it. If you guys haven't tried one out, if you want a 380 that's just really shootable, that's the way to go. It really is. A-Dubs, TSOS has a serious lack of MIM parts. It's oversprung for American 9mm ammunition, but that's about it. Interesting. Okay. All right. Scott, Arms Corps is Rock Island. Are they one and the same, or just pieces of the same overarching company? Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Let's see. Ohio, I bought the Taylor 10mm, or bought, I think, the Taylor 10mm 1911 from Palmetto 2. Haven't shot it much. Okay, nice. Pistol Pete, the SIG P220 Elite 10mm all stainless will tame that recoil of full power 10mm nicely. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. And I'm sure a fantastic firearm. Now, I've got a 220, the Legion in 45, and then I've threaded it and suppressed it. It's fantastic. It's a great gun. Now, it's the SAO. I kind of regret that. I kind of wish I'd done the DASA. That's the more traditional route. But the SAO I could find for a better price. And the SAO triggers on the P guns are quite good. But I've not been disappointed in that at all. Let's see, Pistol Pete, but it weighs like 3 pounds. Yes, they are chunky monkeys for sure. Ranger Andy, I got the SIG P365 and 380, and it's my favorite 380 so far. Nice. So I've made this argument before, and some people got a little bit not happy with me about this. I feel like the 365, although it's a great gun, a 9mm, no doubt about it, I feel like it was really destined and really made for 380 because it's such a light gun. To me, it's the same thing. The P238 and the P938. The P238 is a pretty fun gun to shoot. The P938 to me is a little too snappy. That aluminum frame has no give on it, so you feel every bit of that recoil. It's doable. It can certainly shoot. I mean, I've got a video on those two guns way back in the library on the channel. They are shootable guns, but I did not enjoy the 938 nearly as much as I did the 238. Same with the P365. In 380, it's a lot of fun. I've got one, and I absolutely love it. I carry it with some frequency. Laugh if you will. I do. I just think it's a fun gun. Scott, prior to 2022, TSOS was using MIM parts in their 1911s. Okay. All right. Let's see. Ohio Rock Island is a distributor. Arms Corps builds them for RIA and others. All right. There you go. Nice. I did not know that. I didn't know Rock Island was just the distributor. I actually thought it was a manufacturer as well. Huh. Interesting. Very interesting. Well, what's everybody's plan for the week? Anybody have any range plans or anything like that? Anything you can't live without? Big Johnson likes to ask that a lot. I don't have anything right now, thankfully. I need to stop buying guns for a while. I'm in the penalty box for just a little while, so I'll have to just enjoy shooting for the time being. Ranger Andy, I agree with you. The SIG 365 and 380 is better to shoot than the 9mm. I would agree with that. Now, obviously, 9mm, I would not discard that 9mm is a better round, more viable round for self-defense. But at the same time, I don't think anybody would want to get shot with a 380. So it's a perfectly viable round. And I'm kind of known as the 380 nerd at Centerfire. I just enjoy them. I think they're a lot of fun. I really do. Ohio's still waiting for the TSOS BDA clone. Okay. Yeah. You had mentioned that a few weeks ago, if I recall correctly. Yeah, that would be fun. I mean, I'd be down for that. Scott, I'm watching several M1 Grands. Nice. I hope you get the one you want. I really, truly do. They are beautiful guns, no doubt about it. And again, another historical firearm, right? An incredible pedigree. When somebody is shooting one of those on the range, everybody knows it right away. They truly do. So that's very cool, man. Keep me posted on that, please. Let's see. Dan, shop in the safe. Okay. Fair enough. Brian, been a long time, but glad to have found this chat. Brian, appreciate it, man. Yeah, absolutely. You are a welcome addition for sure. Mateo, range trip tomorrow to test out some new hand loads. Got new powder in. Very good. Steve, I'm retired now, so anything I want. No, stop saying that. I'm jealous. I wish I could be retired. I really do. I wish I could be retired, but still this age. It'd be fantastic. Unrealistic, but fantastic. Let's see. Curly, going to break in the MR920P this week. Very good, man. Congratulations. Another firearm that's got a break-in. They declare a break-in on that firearm, and it's a polymer firearm. Yeah, I hope it breaks in well. I'm sure it will. I don't think I've met anyone that has a complaint about a Shadow Systems. They make good guns. They really do. Let's see. Scott, they know it after the 8th round ping. Yes, that's exactly right. 100%. Ranger, any one drawback of the 380, the price. Yes, 380 is more expensive to shoot for sure. No doubt about it. Pistol Pete keeps stuffing that money in your 401k. Man, I am. I just wish it would grow more. Yeah. Cast and reload. No, it's funny. So I've got, obviously, the space I'm in right now, this is where I used to film all the reviews. So my table's right below us, even though I've re-topped it. But I've got another work table down in the garage, a much bigger one, like 7x32, I think. So I can do like rifle builds and that sort of thing down there. But that table I inherited from the previous owners. And I tell you what, it is also retired and it is giving up on life. I think it's going to start tilting here pretty soon. So one of my coworkers is making me a new workbench, and I'm very, very excited. I decided not to do it this time. I built this table, but he is much more capable of building, owns a construction company. So I'm very excited for that. So I'll be looking forward to breaking in a new workbench down in the garage. So very excited for that. It's the weird things we look forward to in life, I think. Brian, been retired since 2015. Actually, it gets a bit boring unless you stay busy or get a job. Yes, I would continue to work. If I was retired, I would still work, but it would be fun jobs, right? Doing things you like to do. I would actually do a lot more photography. I enjoy photography quite a bit. Let's see, Stevie, growing old doesn't mean you have to grow up. Still go to rock concerts. Nice. You would enjoy the albums around the house for sure. There's a lot of prog in there. I'm a big prog head. Let's see, Looney Tune. I've had issues with all my shadow systems, mainly failures to feed. MR920, DR920, CR920. Issues happen after 500 rounds. Have you talked to shadow systems? That seems weird and like too coincidental almost. I would be curious to know what kind of feedback you get on that. That's interesting. Keep me posted on that, Looney. I would be very curious. Andrew Dilda. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. I will see you soon, I'm sure. Darren, I'd love to have an M1 Garand. It would be nice to see that platform clones so it could be really shot without having to worry about breaking historical firearm. For sure. I would agree. Pistol Pete, favorite rock group of all time, Rush. Without question. I have some other ones that are very high up on the list, but Rush puts a smile on my face. I don't care what song, what album, with the exception of the very last album. I didn't really get into that one quite so much, but yeah, Rush for sure. Steve, I probably have some of those same LPs. I'm sure you probably do. And probably some of you haven't heard of that one that looks like it's got that red square in it. That's actually a light bulb. Have you ever heard of Porcupine Tree? That's Light Bulb Sun back there. Fantastic album, by the way, just so you know. Very off topic, but a great album. Pistol Pete, let's see. Sorry, Steve B. I probably have most of them. Yep. Moving Pictures, Pistol Pete. Everybody says that. It's cliche. Everybody says Moving Pictures. Wonderful album. But no, I would actually say this guy, Permanent Waves, right there. And then my favorite of all time, believe it or not, is Roll the Bones. Because it was the very first album I heard of theirs, and it changed my life completely. In 1991, I think it was. That was a very pivotal moment in my life, finding them. And then Dream Theater and all the other prog groups after that. And I went down a very crazy rabbit hole, and I've never come back from that. So, yeah. But again, anything Rush does is fine. Ohio. Thanks, buddy. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to be ending it here in just 1 second. Fluffy, at what round count do you expect handgun issues to start happening, assuming you are cleaning and oiling it? I don't expect them to happen at all. If I'm taking care of the firearm, I expect it to do its job. Now, there does come a time where certain parts are going to break. Recoil springs and guide rods and other springs, trigger springs, things like that. Those parts are wearable parts. So you do have to keep an eye on that. However, for most quality guns, we're talking typically like 5,000 to 10,000 rounds or beyond before you start having those issues. A lot of times our rental guns, we don't start seeing issues until pretty late in, as long as we're maintaining them, if we do. But it's usually spring parts. Although our 43X, the slide lock slide release, sheared off in the middle of it. Somebody brought it back to the counter, and the slide lock slide release was just sticking straight out the side of the firearm. And I just kind of pulled it off, and it had sheared right in half inside the firearm. I have never seen anything like that before. So parts can break for sure, but generally speaking, it's going to be the moving parts, the springs and such. So that's what you really need to keep an eye on. And most manufacturers will tell you when to change those parts. Most, not all, but most. But just keep an eye on them, right? Mateo, cleaning, never heard of her. Yeah, I'm OCD, so I have to clean. It just has to happen. Pistol Pete, extractor issues can happen. Keep them clean for sure. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I did not mention that, but you're exactly right. They get a lot of gunk behind them, so definitely keep them clean. And they can get debris inside there. So if you have the ability to take them apart, if you don't, take them to a real gunsmith. But if you can take your own firearms apart and everything, get clean inside the extractor channel. Like Glocks, for instance. Most people can take apart a Glock, the entire thing, right? I get in with a Q-tip and get in the extractor channel, do all that. And then I take the extractor and I wipe it down. And then I actually take a brass brush and just gently remove any carbon from the tooth right there. So take that for what it's worth. Brian, buddy, CZ Shadow 2 compact 3 months ago and still haven't shot it yet, brother. You got to get out there and shoot it, man. You really do. Could only find one holster in stock at the time and hate the freaking holster. I'd carry and shoot it if I had a better holster. But just go shoot it. Go shoot it. You don't have to carry it yet. Go shoot it. Break it in a little bit, right? That's the theme of tonight's chat anyway. Just go ahead and experience it. You paid the money. Go shoot it. And then come back and tell us what you think the next time you're on the chat. Please. Stevie Ives Smith & Wesson Model 29. Nice. 15,000 rounds through it without any problems. Very good. Very good. Now, of course, revolvers, fewer parts, right? But you still have to maintain them. You definitely do. So, yeah, that's good. 15,000 rounds. That's a good round count. Brian, anyone have a holster recommendation for the S2C mentioned above? I appreciate it if you do. I do not, unfortunately. And we're a little bit past the hour, guys. Went a little bit long tonight, but that's okay. I love talking with you guys. It is about that time. It's bourbon o'clock for me. So I want to go have a glass of bourbon and relax because it's going to be a long week of boring work, the big boy job, which I never look forward to. But listen, all of you guys, thanks so much for joining. I hope this continues to grow back to where it was back in the day. But what a great conversation, great group of people. I appreciate each and every one of you. So have a great week. Stay safe. And we will definitely talk again very soon. And hopefully I have somebody on. I tried to get Honest on tonight, but he was not able to do it. So we'll try and do it another time. You guys, talk to you later. Thanks again.